All right, college football week 3, and we've got some great matchups. We also have some top 25 teams going across the country for their first road test. And will it or will it not work out in their favor? That'll be one of the games that we're talking about here on the college football kickoff show. But we've got 6 in total, including 3 best bets from 3 of the best here at wagertalk.com. As Jimmy Adams will be in the house here. Brian Leonard is here again, as is Jeff Michaels. And Jeff, we're going to start with you here because something a little bit close to your heart there in Ohio. In fact, Miami of Ohio will be taking on Cincinnati in a pretty big matchup this weekend. Tell me, how are you looking at this matchup?
This is definitely an interesting matchup that I had firsthand experience actually being on both sides. I spent a year down going to Miami, followed by a year over at Cincinnati, and these two schools have one of the bigger rivalries in Ohio at least. But you talk about those big school, little school, big brother kind of rivalries. This is one of the biggest. I mean, they've met 29 times since 1992. Cincinnati's 22-7 in those games, and they've actually won 16 straight. Doesn't quite go back to the Big Ben days, but 2005, when Grutza threw 5 interceptions for Cincinnati, was the last time Miami pulled off a win. I don't quite think we're going to see that kind of performance from Cincinnati again this weekend, but I do think that there's some value here on the underdog with this many points here. We were actually talking before the show a lot. Overreactions are, I think, a big thing in all of football, especially early in the weeks. And I think we benefit from a string of overreactions here. I mean, all the way back to Pitt beating Wofford. I think that led to a bad line in the Cincinnati Pitt game, which I think led to a bigger win for Cincinnati than it actually was, leading to a misleading line here. Miami's actually number 1 in the nation in yards per completion this season, almost 19 yards per catch. They've only completed 25 passes in those 2 games. But if those wide receivers can get their hands on the ball, they can definitely keep this game close, especially within 2 touchdowns. Not to mention Chuck Martin at Miami of Ohio, 11-2 against the spread after putting up 37 or more points in the game before. So he really likes to carry that momentum over from an offensive performance like they had last week, even if it was against UMass. I think there's value here getting 14 points with Miami in a game that they're going to want to win. And Cincinnati very well could be looking ahead to their first Big 12 matchup next week, too. So I like the dog here.
All right, Jeff, appreciate that. We'll send it over to Mr. Brian Leonard, who's going to come to my neck of the woods here. And I believe the Swamp is always a good place to play some football, unless, of course, you're Tennessee, because you haven't won there in a million years. But talk to me here, Brian Leonard. You've got Tennessee versus Florida. How are you approaching this one?
This has been a series that has been dominated by Florida over the years. I know Tennessee won last year at home, but they didn't cover against the Florida Gators. In fact, the Volunteers have lost 9 straight games in the Swamp. The last 2 visits, they were underdogs of 19 and 14 points. So this is a situation they haven't been in Florida, and that's a road favorite of close to a touchdown here. And we'll have to see. I know that they've come out, and my power ratings have them favored in this game, and they should be favored. But it's a situation for me that they haven't won here, and it's been a long time. And the players are new, but the coaching staff and the fans know the troubles they've had in Florida over the years. In fact, over the last decade, Tennessee has posted a 16-28 straight-up record away from home. Last year being the only season in the last decade in which they had a winning record on the road, they were 3-2. So this is a team of Tennessee. They've been very impressive the last few years. They're a team that is turning into a team that people want to bet on, but they've done most of that damage at home, not on the road. Florida lost the season opener at Utah 24-11, but keep in mind, that trip was the furthest west that Florida has traveled in the last 5 years, and we have seen a lot of that, especially this year early on, where you've got really power teams like a Wisconsin going to Washington State. You got teams that don't go past the Mississippi Mississippi River there, and they are always on the East Coast. When they go to the West Coast, this has been something I've been using for decades. The MAC teams, the Mountain West, the Big Ten teams, the ACC teams. So when you got to go a long travel, let's just take something out of you. They have not been used to that. Florida is 26-6 straight up at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium the last 6 seasons, and over that same time frame, they've been installed as a home underdog 4 times. They covered the spread all 4 times, winning 3 of those games in straight up fashion. The only loss I believe, was to Alabama, who is still, even in what could be a down season this year, still on a quite different level than this Tennessee team. So if I could take a closer touchdown here with Florida, and they've dominated in the past, when this game gets close late in the game, I'll take that extra point here with Florida on a home field that I said is 26-6 straight up the last decade. Give me the Gators in this SEC matchup.
All right, Bri, appreciate that. Do want to remind you, though, if you are new here to us at Wager Talk TV, it is the College Football Kickoff Show. Go ahead. May I suggest hitting the subscribe button? Hit that like button. Nobody's got more content when it comes to college football than we do. And if it's game previews you like and breakdowns, we've got it for you here. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button as we send it over to Jimmy Adams, who is going to be looking at this game where Washington, 2-0, have been absolutely dominant, but they got to travel across country now to Michigan and take on the hot mess that is Michigan State here, Jimmy, in a true first road test for this Washington team. How are you approaching this one?
Yeah, this is a bad spot for Michigan State with everything that's going on with the program. Mel Tucker almost certainly to be fired, and it could have a ripple effect with the program. Remember, the players have an opportunity to redshirt and transfer if they choose to do so. I don't know if any of them will, and it's worth noting that I would play this game even without the distractions. So I just don't think this is helping. We really don't know how good Sparty is, as they've beaten Central Michigan and Richmond so far, but their season win total was set at 5.5 entering the year. So I don't think we can expect very much. What we do know is this Washington offense is one of the best in the country and will not be stopped. UW opened as 2 touchdown favorites against what was supposed to be the best team in the Mountain West, Boise State. We all know how that ended, a 56-19 win. The offense enters 3rd in the nation in yards per game, 4th in points per game. Michael Penix Jr. right up there with the favorites to win the Heisman. This is just another opportunity for him to showcase his talents. And I have absolutely no faith that Sparty's going to be able to stick around here. Way too many distractions going up against a Husky squad that's quickly proving they're no joke and one of the best teams in the country. This game has blowout written all over it. Give me Washington minus the points.
All right, there you go. 3 big game breakdowns. We've got 3 best bets coming your way. And do want to let you know, if you have any questions on any of these games that they're talking about, or actually any game on the card here, week 3 in the college football season, drop them below in the comments section there. Jimmy, as well as Brian Leonard and Jeff Michaels, they'll be monitoring the chat room right up until kickoff. So if you guys have any questions at all, drop them in there. We appreciate it. And of course, we will absolutely get back to you on it as we go full circle and come back to one Jeff Michaels here for the first best bet up. And Jeff, of all the games in this country here in week 3 of the college football season, who are you looking at as a best bet here?
Guys, this is an interesting spot here again for Syracuse. Just the 3rd meeting between Syracuse and Purdue, and between teams that don't face each other very often in these home and away back-to-back year series. I do normally look towards the revenge angle, but Syracuse pulled out the win last year in the home game as a 1.5 point favorite. Now they come back this year in Ross-Ade Stadium over in Indiana, and they're actually a 2.5 point favorite this year on the road against Purdue. I've really been looking until something changes my mind. Jimmy may agree with me. I'm going to look to continue to go against some of these Big Ten teams this season. They're just not convincing me as much as I thought they would. And Purdue's another one of those teams that I'm going to put on that list in the conference. There's a little bit of an injury concern with Syracuse. Wide receiver Oronde Gadsden could be out for this game, which is going to be a big loss for them. But I got a little more confidence now, even in Donovan Brown. He is a freshman, but he showed up last week. He had 3 receptions, but he put up 89 yards and a touchdown. They also have some options in Umari Hatcher and Isaiah Jones down there too, to fill the gap if Gadsden can't go. And something I mentioned in that big game breakdown was something that really stood out to me for Purdue here that carried over. And it's that yards per completion aspect. Purdue's faced Fresno State and Virginia Tech, which is a noticeably harder schedule than what Syracuse has put up. But Syracuse's numbers have obviously been a lot better against those weaker foes. And Purdue, 96th in the nation, allowing almost 13 yards per completion there too. So these Syracuse wide receivers are athletic. Purdue is actually 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 games at home. And I think, again, this is another look-ahead spot for another team who has a big conference game coming up. New head coach Ryan Walters has his team, or his ex-team, I should say, up in 2 weeks. And they got his first Big Ten matchup next week against Wisconsin, with Illinois on deck as the first-time head coach for Purdue here. Syracuse 6-0 against the spread after putting up 37 or more points, and they were 2-0 against the spread against Big Ten opponents last year, whereas Purdue last 2 years just 3-5 against the spread as an underdog, and they're 0-7 after back-to-back games allowing under 125 rushing yards. So Syracuse has obviously been a passing threat. I got my eye on Schrader this weekend. I think he's going to be a huge part of this Syracuse team and the Syracuse win in this game. But I do think that there's some opportunity for Purdue's rush defense to take a step backwards too. So I like Syracuse's offense to take over this game, and I do like them to cover this field goal 2.5 point spread here. So I'm going with the Orange against the Big Ten this weekend on Saturday.
All right, Syracuse, it is, Jeff. We appreciate that as we send it back to Brian Leonard. And Brian, interesting game here. One might consider it maybe a trap game for the Liberty Flames as they are heading to Buffalo, New York. Tell me, how are you looking at this one for a best bet?
Jeff talked earlier about making adjustments as it goes on and don't overreact to small sample sizes. Well, these teams have only played a couple games, and so that's something you always have to take advantage of here in week 3. Still not enough information, and I think that gives us a little advantage in this one. It's not as high profile as the last game I spoke about, but I'm going to talk about the Liberty and Buffalo game here. The Liberty enters play undefeated, but this will be the best team they played so far this year. Despite us scoring Bowling Green and Mexico State by combined 26 points, they only outgained those opponents by 0.31 yards per play. The reason why Liberty won those games is they had a +8 combined turnover ratio in those games. So they had really took advantage of the turnovers, and that's what won. Buffalo's winless thus far. Losses at Wisconsin and hosting Fordham last week. And while the Rams aren't an FBS program, they are a solid FCS squad. Wisconsin's a team that's going to more of a passing game this year. So they went into that game not really knowing what they were going to see. So I could see a reason why Buffalo is a little underrated right here. And I think Liberty's a little overrated. You take a look at, in our opinion, this is a lot of what that loss was to Fordham is counting into this line here. Fordham's a better team than what a lot of people give them credit for. And as Jeff also said, when you take a look and you lose to an FCS squad, a lot of people completely jump down your throat. And some of these teams are really good. There's a lot of teams in the FCS that can beat teams in the FBS. We see it every year. And you take a look at Buffalo, already 0-2 on the season. They go to Louisiana Lafayette next week, and Lafayette's a pretty good team. And that's a tough road travel for a team out of the MAC. So with that on deck, this becomes a must-win game for Buffalo. They can't go into league action going 0-4 non-conference play. I think this is a situation where we take advantage of the Liberty +8 turnover margin in the first two games. Buffalo in a must-win situation at home. I like Buffalo here, and I gave this to clients a +4. There's still 3s out there. I still like it. We're going to play Buffalo. I think they win this game outright, and we'll stick with the MAC, one of the conferences I made a lot of money on over the years. So we'll go with the MAC and Buffalo. Plus the points here against Liberty is my best bet.
All right, Brad, appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. Again, guys, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. If it's content on college football you like, it is content you will get here from us at Wager Talk TV. All right, we're going to wrap it up here with the final best bet with none other than Jimmy Adams. And Jimmy, I believe Lucas Oil Stadium is where you are heading for this best bet, as Indiana will be taking on Louisville. And how are you approaching this one?
If you're looking for a live semi-home dog to put in your pocket Saturday, look no further than the Indiana Hoosiers. I say semi-home because this game is going to be played at Lucas Oil, but it's essentially a home game for Indiana. Louisville feeling pretty good about themselves, off to a 2-0 start with some offensive numbers that rank near the top of the nation. And how could you not when you just beat down a team like Murray State 56-0? But all kidding aside, they need to be very careful about going on the road and overlooking this Indiana team. The Hoosiers are 2-0 against the spread, and the defense is playing much better than expected. They've allowed 30 points so far, and that includes a game against Ohio State. I mean, say what you want about the Buckeyes, but it's still Ohio State. Tom Allen brought in a ton of transfers, and it seems to be working defensively. And for as good as the Cardinals have been on offense, their third down conversion rate is abysmal. It's sitting at just 23%. Also, an area that Indiana excels in defensively. Special teams has also been an area that Indiana has excelled in, an area that doesn't get talked about nearly as much as it should. I know it was Indiana State, but the Hoosiers offense did get some confidence by putting up 558 yards and 41 points. Louisville only beat Georgia Tech by 5 in their opener, and if they let Indiana dictate the pace of this game, they could be in trouble. I think this is a sneaky spot. Give me Indiana plus double digits for this week's best bet.
All right, there you go, Jimmy Adams. Certainly do appreciate it. Week 3 of the college football season here, guys. We got 3 big game breakdowns. We got 3 best bets. And again, the opportunity for you guys to drop any questions and comments you have in that comment section. We will answer them. You know, knowledge is power. The more we have, the more profitable we become. So go ahead, drop any of those questions in the comment section below, and we will get back to you. And speaking of knowledge, like I said, if it's game previews and other best bets you want to know about here, top 25, top 50 in the country in week 3, well, we've got them for you right there on your screen. Go ahead and hit that video showing, and you will be taken to see all the rest of the big top 25 video breakdowns for week 3 of the college football season. Good luck.